Welcome, welcome. If anyone's listening, thank you for listening. First story is from the Federal News Network by Scott Maucione. Army is working on Frankenbots with living tissue to better robot capabilities. The thought of living tissue and machinery meshing together brings up images of grotesque cyborgs and far future sci-fi films. But at the Army Research Laboratory, a robot with living organic muscle may not be that far off. Grotesque cyborgs, I don't think they're grotesque. Far future, 1984 was like the first Terminator? So, I don't know. Anyway. And the Borg. Ooh. I'll just get in a whole bunch of mess here. But anyway, ARL's Combat Capabilities Development Command is teaming up with universities in North Carolina to develop studies in biohybrid robotics. The idea is just as fantastical as you may be imagining. ARL wants to fuse living tissue with cold metal to build robots that may be able to gain the agility and versatility of living creatures. Like giant robotic spiders. Biohybrid robotics as a field is very young, Dean Culver, an ARL search scientist, told Federal News Network. Today's robots' primary limitation is power, strength, and versatility. They can perform limited tasks for a certain amount of time, but it is not really on the order or magnitude that an organism can do the same thing. We still don't have robots that can go into an unknown space and adapt to what they sense. These are all ultimately problems that we feel that either a biohybrid or a bio-inspired engineering design can tackle. Bioweapons. What ARL is dreaming up is growing tissue in a lab and then connecting tissue between links in a robot's joints. This technology could allow robots to be sturdier and adapt faster to terrain instead of relying on the static joints made of synthetic materials. One of the real advantages of muscle and the tendons and ligaments associated with the test of the kinetic chain is organisms is that flexibility lets something go a little bit wrong, Culver said. There won't be a catastrophe. I can slip and adjust and a little bit and not fall down. The muscles can come from any animal depending on what the Army needs. Fly muscles, in particular, have some desirable characteristics, Culver said. Using just a handful of cells to culture up a useful piece of tissue can be done with a variety of different genomes, or from a variety of different species, depending on what kind of system level architecture you want to use. Wow. The Army wants the first application of biohybrid robots to focus on the legged platforms. Right now, the Army has a legged locomotion and movement adaptation research platform that serves as a perfect example of the type of robot the service could work on. ARL is currently finding more partners for the project. Skynet. At the moment, we have a great theoretical basis for what we're trying to do, Culver said. Some of the tools that we want to use to improve the design of muscle tissue for use in robots have been tested on lots of other proteins and molecules, and they're proven to be effective. What we really need now is some time to get these tools directed to the molecular relevant in muscles. There's a lot of learning to do before we produce prototypes. Wow. That is crazy. Like adaptable. It's like, oh, your worst nightmare. A biological adaptive robot can adapt it to terrain and the situation. And then eventually human brains. Sorry. All right. Thank you for listening. Next story. So this next story is from Daily Star, written by Tom Bull. And my stories are kind of all around today, which is nice. I like a whole bunch of randomness to it, but we have world's creepiest tourist attraction where monks mummified themselves alive. The story of ancient spiritual leaders who starve themselves and meditate to death has resurfaced as tourists continue to flock to gape at the mummified monks who cheat death. There's a guy right there. Monk meditated to death to reach nirvana. I mean, I like the band, but I don't know. Okay. Japan has an almost endless list of spectacular tourist attractions. From cutting edge to the ancient ruins, cutting edge modern skyscrapers, Tokyo Sky Tree, and there's something for the city lover and the free spirit. Let's see. Okay, there. A report by news.com.au. There are 16 Sakushin Butsu monks that can be viewed by travelers in historic temples scattered across northern Japan. These monks followed Shujendo, which is an ancient form of Buddhism. They tried to copy a 9th century monk named Kukai, who entered into a state of suspended animation when he died. There you go. I don't know. Let's see. This is just another monk. Okay, this isn't like that Kukai. So, his followers claim that he will emerge 5,000 years after he was buried, having cheated death. Whoa. Okay, so like there's a whole process, and this process is pretty intense. So, to achieve their final state of being mummified and worshipped, the followers would have to be prepared to give up nearly every pleasure on earth. Their journey begins with a 3-year diet of nothing but nuts and seeds, whilst simultaneously exercising to strip them of their body fat. As reported in Atlas Obscura, they then ate only bark and roots for another 3 years and began drinking a poisonous tea made from the sap of the urushi tree normally used to lacquer bowls. Its bark contains the same toxic compound that makes poison ivy so poisonous. It's another guy. No name. There we go. This caused vomiting and rapid loss of bodily fluids. Damn. And most importantly, it killed off any maggots and parasites that might cause the body to decay after death. After a 3-year diet, they could move into the second phase, but for some it took much longer. One monk said he said to have spent 20 years eating nothing but bark in a bid to ready himself. Wow. It's dedication, though. After that, they cut out all food and drink. They survived only on a tiny amount of sanitized water and spent 100 days meditating whilst waiting to die. When the time neared, their followers would lower them into a pit 3 meters deep and bury them alive. That's that's interesting. Got like that. Meanwhile, the dying monk would stay perfectly still and meditate on his back as he was covered in charcoal. He would be put into a pine box in a hole 3 meters deep with nothing but a thin bamboo air tube. He had a bell to ring to let his disciples know he was alive. When the ringing stopped, the tube was removed and the tomb was sealed. Okay. If they had carried the ritual successfully, when the tombs were finally opened, again their bodies would have been mummified. They were pulling from their graves and made into statues of Buddha, with their corpses on display to this day. For some, their bodies had rotted away and decomposed. After all this time dedicated to their journey, it ended with them resealed in their coffins. They were not worshipped. Man, that's crazy. I mean, I guess, good for them for, sticking to your guns. I mean, can't really say they did anything halfway. Man. All right. Thank you for listening. Come with the next story. So here's my next story. I think it's from pixels.com. No, it's Study Finds Research in a Nutshell. It is written by Chris Mellor. How do people hear the dead? Researchers reveal why some have a sixth sense. This is from Durham, United Kingdom. Is that strange noise in the night the wind, or is there a spirit trying to talk to you? While most people will go through their entire lives without any encounter with the paranormal, a new study finds that some individuals who are more prone to hearing the dead. Researchers from Durham University said spiritualists, mediums, or others who can hear ghostly voices are more likely to engage in immersive mental activities and hear strange sounds early in life compared to someone without a sixth sense. Study authors say that their findings reveal why some people insist they can hear the voices of dead souls and eventually turn into spiritualist beliefs. Spiritualism is a religious movement which centers around the belief that a human soul still exists after death. These souls can even keep communicating with the living world, giving rise to the modern-day interest in mediums and psychics. Okay, very, very interesting. Mediums who say they hear these voices are experiencing clairaudient communications, according to researchers. This differs from the more common phrase clairvoyant, seeing, and clairsentient, feeling and sensing, ghostly presence. Hearing the dead is all about absorption. Researchers surveyed 65 clairaudient mediums from the Spiritualist National Union and 143 ordinary people to examine this phenomenon. The results reveal that spiritualists have a strong link to absorption, a deep involvement in mental or imaginative activities, or experiencing altered states of consciousness. The study also finds mediums are more likely to hear voices and other strange sounds early in life. Researchers also compared the participants' level of hallucination proneness, aspects of identity, and belief in the paranormal. The study finds nearly half, 44.6% of spiritualists participants, say they hear the dead on a daily basis. Another 33.8% had a clairaudient experience within 1 day of the survey. Nearly 4 in 5 and clairaudient experiences are part of their daily lives. As for where these communication is taking place, 65% of mediums say spirits communicate with them inside the head. However, 1 in 3 spiritualists report having a ghostly experience both inside and outside of their head. The average spiritualist starts hearing voices at age 21. Compared with respondents from the general population, a spiritualist scores much higher on tests of absorption. Not bothered by pure pressure. They go on to say that pretty much if you have these kind of views, then you don't really care about people's opinions. So that probably makes you a little more open to it. And they believe more in the paranormal to begin with as well. Our findings say a lot about learning and yearning. For our participants, the tenets of spiritualism seem to make sense of both extraordinary childhood experiences as well as the frequent auditory phenomena they experience as practicing mediums. Lead researcher Dr. Adam Powell says in a media release, but all of those experiences may result more from having certain tendencies or early abilities than from simply believing in the possibility of contacting the dead if one tries hard enough. Spiritualists tend to report unusual auditory experiences which are positive, start early in life, which they are often then able to control. Understanding how these develop is important because it could help us understand the more distressing or non-controllable experiences of hearing voices too. Dr. Peter Mosley from Northumbria University adds. And here's the study appears in the journal Mental Health, Religion, and Culture. So, very interesting. I mean, I'd be curious to read more about the actual report itself, because it really does sound, it really sounds like they're taking a very serious approach to the whole idea of psychics and mediums, that they're saying, yeah, they really do hear voices and possibly even dead voices. So that's very interesting. Thank you for listening. So I thought I would end with this last story I found. It's from nerdsmagazine.com, written by Steve Landry. Ghostbusting: How to Detect Spirit in Your Home, or detect spirits in your home. Anyway, here's your table of contents here, and the first here is ghost hunting equipment. And they basically say, depending on your budget, you can purchase, a wide, if you've watched any kind of ghost hunting show, there's a huge, wide array of instruments that are used, and some are really expensive, some are simple, everything from, some crazy camera to just a Polaroid, but they come down here, and they have other ghost hunting equipment includes a thermal camera, an EMF meter, and a ghost box. All these pieces of equipment will help you determine the presence of spirits in your vicinity. So that's how you would get started. And then they mention unexplained changes in temperature. So ups or downs, typically they're more into the cold regions is what they look like from the shows. Unfamiliar scents. Another common way of identifying a ghost is using the sense of smell. Although researchers have concluded many research types on ghost habits and presented their findings, none has presented 100% accuracy results. Let's see. Some people smell cookies, cakes, baking smell, and some others smell food. While there is no kitchen activity, unfamiliar and unusual scents tell you that some spirits have been invading your privacy and staying at your homes. The next one's pretty obvious. Strange sounds, hearing footsteps, doors closing, people running around, voices you can't identify, murmurs, anything, I'd imagine, anything out of the ordinary would be the first one there, first question. A sensation of being touched. So I'd like to think that's pretty straightforward. They also talk here about how evil ghosts will push you down the stairs, or there's like, you've seen a lot of people where they enter like fairly haunted areas will get like scratches or bruises or things along those lines. That's a big one you see in the shows. The misplacement of items. Another common way of determining ghost existence is misplacement of things. Misplacing things is normally among human beings. People often forget after placing items, which is why many ignore the initial signs from the ghost. Oh, okay, so they're saying that just because you typically can forget something, that maybe you're not noticing that there's an actual ghost in your house. Flickering lights. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. If your lights are flickering and you're not doing anything to them, I mean, obviously you don't want to check, make sure it's not the switch, but that's a good one. In the conclusion, ghostbusting seems adventurous, but is far from a piece of cake. People need to have the nerve and steel and a healthy heart and mind presence to detect spirits. Mysterious sightings, inexplicable movements, and feeling someone's company are a few ways to help you see spirits exists. Ghosts may have their reasons for invading your privacy still. Naturally, you would not want to share your space rent-free with some otherworldly creature. Technology advancement has made it possible to communicate with spirits, and you can do so by getting ghost hunting equipment. I don't know. I mean, I guess it would depend on the ghost. I mean, what if like, you want to be an actor? What if you want to be like a painter? I mean, I'm pretty sure if I wanted to be a painter and like, anybody from like Michelangelo, like Bob Ross came and, wanted to give me hints, I'm pretty sure I'd pick up their end of the rent if they wanted to help me, paint some happy trees or something. Anyway, I ramble. If you're still listening, thank you for listening. Good night.